finished! Thank goodness. I was afraid there might have been a third phase to that final boss. Oh my god. That was a frantic experience, but I survived. The easiest difficulty level. Shh. What can I say? When the pressure's on, I panic. Let's see what I said about Doom 2016, because they're pretty similar. I didn't review Doom 2016. The main difference is that Doom Eternal feels more outdoorsy, with lots more platforming sections. It flirts pretty closely with perfection, on its own terms at least, so I'm gonna have to enter ultra-fussy, critical, nitpicky mode. Ah! At the moment I usually get so goddamn bored by games and fail to finish them, even games that are just around the 10-hour mark. Although the coronavirus pandemic putting me out of work for a while might have something to do with my abundance of time. So I enjoyed this. It was a good distraction. id Software's classic Doom franchise in recent times has attempted to revert to its roots of fast-paced shooting action. Pretty wisely, because this has distinguished itself from a horde of grey, dirty, derivative war shooters. And Doom Eternal has largely achieved its aims, to supply players with a flowing, ultra-fast-moving, hectic arcade shooting power fantasy. The only real criticisms I can level at Doom Eternal are more because my personal preferences don't necessarily conform completely with id's vision, rather than because they did anything wrong. The game is pretty fantastic, beyond a few glitches, some instances where it seems like you might be able to climb or jump somewhere but you can't, invisible walls say no, and the story is pretty disposable, but it's obviously not meant to be taken particularly seriously. The game railroads Doom Guy by design into executing play in a very specific way. This is done by keeping the player's ammunition capacity excessively limited, but also by providing virtually limitless means of replenishing it through melee. This means your weapons run out of ammo all the time, at which point you are required to chainsaw an enemy, typically a small one classed as fodder, which then sprays ammo out of the resultant fleshy stumps. These easier fodder enemies are basically power-ups, health and ammo boosts disguised as enemies. The game would be impossible in many circumstances without them floundering around trying to impress their more demon-y kin. This means melee combat is absolutely required, especially in the more grueling combat arenas towards the middle and end of the game. There is one way and one way only to play through this game. Rip and tear, brute force. Close quarters. You can specialize to some small degree by tweaking weapons and abilities, though by the end you'll have enough of all the upgrades, runes, mods, sentinel crystals, and weapon and suit points, to buy pretty much all available improvements anyway. There are 9 ranged weapons, 6 with 2 unlockable sub-modes. Of those, the BFG 9000 and the Unmaker are so powerful, but come so late and have such terminally limited ammo that they'll barely be used except in later replays with cheat codes, which I'm grateful for. And there's a flamer, at least a belch of flame, that provides armor and freezing and frag grenades. All 3 of these sub-weapons I tended to forget existed. If I play through on a harder difficulty level, I'll probably try and make better use of them. For the mandatory melee interactions, players use the chainsaw, the blood punch, and the crucible, the red shiny sword teased in trailers. The ammunition for these modes of attack is even more strictly controlled than that of ranged weapons. The first melee attack, the chainsaw, can be used 3 times on fodder enemies or once on a heavy demon, with its first use against smaller demons automatically refilling. Now this is essential, because there is no attack in the game that does not consume resources, so if you run out of resources, you can't fall back on a pistol or even a punch. So you need to chainsaw a small demon, who will kindly teleport into existence when needed, in order to keep your head above water. The second melee attack is the blood punch. If you've dealt enough damage to an enemy, they'll flash blue or orange, the latter if you're in glory kill range. And these glory kills power up your blood punches, allowing you to punch once or later on twice, before having to reload or refuel with more glory kills. I was pinning my hopes on the Crucible sword to provide an attack that I could just enjoy without being concerned about resource consumption, like in some endlessly frustrating survival game. But this super fancy looking sword you get right towards the end of the game is limited in ammo akin to the chainsaw, except its first use doesn't recharge. It can be used 3 times, each use kills any demon, as long as you can land a hit on it, but still I barely ever use it except for the odd isolated super heavy demon. The result of this interplay between weapons and ammo and ranged and melee prevents a player from getting comfortable with anything except with the cycle of chaos. A frenetic few minutes until a combat encounter is over, then the calm platform jumping aided by double jumping and double dashing before the next combat storm, invariably more violent than the last. Repeat for about 12 hours with a slowly expanding array of enemies and weapons in varied and attractive skyboxes, and that's really the game. Assuming this gameplay loop is what id Software was aiming for, this is all fine. Really top-notch effort. It's expertly done. There feels like a huge amount of potential variety baked into the game, from its aesthetic environments to its various upgrades to its 24 different enemies and 3 unique bosses. There are plenty of times when glory kills and gunplay and chainsawing and pole swinging intersect for really satisfying gameplay. For my tastes though, in their apparent quest to vary gameplay second by second, it becomes almost tedious over its duration. All the combat zones are set within very distinctive architectural set pieces, but at the same time the designs are all a vaguely rearranged palette of platforms and jump pads and swing poles and teleporters. By the time marauders were showing up semi-regularly with their insta-shields and zippy movement and bloody spectral kittens, I always asked them to bugger off, fatigued by the idea of the fight ahead. It feels like all the potential variety offered has been mixed together so densely that it feels like a brown mush instead of multicoloured like it could be. It have concentrated on doing one thing well: close quarter arena battles. I'd have really enjoyed a mission in which I had to hold demons off at range, impossible given the hardwired gameplay loop, demanding close quarter encounters. I'd have liked to see demons kill each other. Remember Doom 2, tricks and traps, when your survival depended upon pitting a cyber demon against a dozen barons of hell. Imagine the ways levels could have been engineered if you kinda had to start fights between demons. Not allowed here. In the current setup it would have just been an exploit. Although the demons are seen arguing with each other, they don't do any damage. I'd have loved to have been involved with some of the Ark Resistance troops, and seeing mechs and titans fight rather than always feeling like I've arrived just after the action. I guess that would be a ton of work. I'd have loved to have some creepy horror elements. The sounds of lurking enemies in Doom 2, again, will stay with me forever, but here, I can't remember what sounds they make. Overall, I really liked it, and enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would, despite the realization dawning pretty early that it's basically a series of combat arenas and jumping sections that begin to feel a bit teen, albeit with really attractive wrapping and, most importantly, compelling gunplay. I forgive its ammo austerity to some degree, because an infinite ammo cheat code is provided along with some others, and I begrudgingly accept that id narrowing their focus in order to do one or two things really well has probably yielded a better result than them trying to do too much. Really recommend it. Fun times. Probably better enjoyed in short bursts rather than rushing it in a couple of days like I did. I award this game ammunition storage and an actual sword forged from tempered expectations that doesn't run out after 3 swipes. And some puppies.